you. Hi, I'm Dr. Heather Athanasiou with Community in Crisis, and I'm here with my daughter, Maddie Athanasiou, who's a sophomore at the University of Indiana in Bloomington. She's here to provide the youth perspective on things that we'll be talking about today. We're presenting webinar 2 of Vape Free, Breathe Free, and this webinar is going to focus on vaping and the teen brain and addiction. So what's the big deal in terms of addiction? Like, why are adults, government agencies, why are people like so alarmed about young people vaping? And the main reason for this is nicotine. The tobacco industry, the people that manufacture cigarettes, they learned a long time ago, because they studied this specifically, to find out how many cigarettes do they have to get into somebody before they create addiction. And the answer is about 100. So they know that that's what they need for somebody to become a customer for life. So it's concerning with Juul. There's such a high nicotine concentration in Juul products. There's about the amount of nicotine. Go ahead.
There's 20 cigarettes in one pod. And if you buy a Juul starter kit, there's 4 pods. And that equals 80 cigarettes. You're like almost to a nicotine addiction just by using one Juul starter kit.
Truly a starter kit.
Yeah.
Start your addiction here. So the reason this is of particular concern for teenagers is because their brains are different than adults in a few ways. The brain develops from the back forward, so that prefrontal cortex is the last part of the brain to develop. It doesn't develop until you're about 20 to 25. So, and it's usually boys that are a little bit on the later side. So your brother Alex, like, you're a little further down the road than he is. Yeah, it's going to take a while. He's still cooking. So your brain's still developing until 20 to 25. And the part of that prefrontal cortex is responsible for things like judgment, knowing right versus wrong, impulse control, and decision making. So you're a lot more likely to sort of jump in and try new things. And you don't want to introduce something that's going to sort of derail that, like those things developing properly. Another thing that's going on with the teenage brain is your brains are wired to learn a lot more quickly than my brains. Maybe that's why I struggle with technology so much. This is like the 8th retake on this little webinar. So your brains are wired to learn a lot more quickly than adults, and that learning system is based on dopamine rewards. So you do something, you get a dopamine payoff, your brain learns this is really important. And so initially your brain's hardwired to learn things that help you survive, like establishing relationships with people that take care of you, like friendships, being part of the community, eating, drinking, sleeping, sex, way down the road, like long time down the road. Those things all have a dopamine payoff, and those are things that will help you or your species survive. When you throw in nicotine into that system, nicotine has a huge dopamine payoff, like bigger than those sort of normal, survival behaviors. So your brain learns like, this is really important. We need a lot more of that, and we need it often, like keep it coming. So there's long-term changes to the brain. You can permanently disrupt that dopamine reward system depending on how long you've been using. And one thing I would say about this is, like, some people that used to enjoy a lot of things in their lives, like maybe it was sports or dance or hanging out with friends, like when they get sort of hooked on nicotine, that becomes the most important thing in their life, and all the other things, like the payoff just doesn't compare. It's like, ugh. Like, I don't really care about what I used to love or the people I used to love. So big changes are possible. So that's the main issue with nicotine in the teenage brain. It's like double jeopardy. You have, like, the brakes aren't great, but you have this lead foot. So big tobacco is back in a big way. These companies that manufacture cigarettes, they either own or big shares or own outright these e-cigarette and vaping companies. They promoted e-cigarettes as being a safer alternative to regular cigarettes. And they knew that especially if they could get this into like younger brains and because of how those brains react to nicotine, that they could have like a pipeline of new customers for life.
Yeah, so Jewel, this is a study from a couple years ago, and it says that 63% of those ages 15 to 24 who use the most popular e-cigarette, which was Jewel at the time, don't know the product always contains nicotine. And that's really alarming that some teen users had no idea that they were putting this highly addictive chemical into their body. Additionally, this study of what students say is in their vape, what they think they're vaping.
And this is now, this is 2008 or not last year, 2019.
Yeah. This study says that about 1/5 of 12th graders still thought it was flavors that they were vaping, no nicotine. However, you can see that it's 35% of 12th graders compared to the 30% of 10th graders, which is a better number. And additionally, you hear a lot of people saying like, oh, it's just like cotton candy flavored, it's mango, like you don't taste like, it doesn't taste like a cigarette. But the truth is it has a very high concentration of nicotine, and you can very easily get addicted just like you can with cigarettes.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, a lot of people didn't know there was nicotine in it, and a lot more people understand that there is, but there's still a small percentage of, students out there who weren't aware that more than like 95% of these products that are vapes do have nicotine in them. If it's Juul, 100% of them have nicotine in them. So this is your wake-up call. If you were one of those last 20% who didn't realize there's nicotine in these products, now you know. So this is to remind us that to discuss that a lot of students are vaping marijuana. 1 out of 3 teens who had ever Juuled said they had tried vaping marijuana. And we have, if we go back to this slide really quickly, this last bar on the right, the light orange, 20% of seniors nationally reported that they were vaping marijuana on a somewhat regular basis. So that's sort of concerning. At high school, they do a pride survey every 2 years, and the last one done in 2019 showed that we have even a higher number of our seniors vaping marijuana. So I want to talk just briefly about marijuana and vaping because we have a significant number of students vaping marijuana that's sort of on the rise. So what's one of the best roller coasters at Six Flags? Like the
King to Caw.
King to Caw.
Yeah.
And how long do you usually have to wait in line to get on
like
King to Caw?
2 hours.
2 hours. So imagine if you're sitting or you're standing in line waiting to get on King to Caw, and you watch that roller coaster that maybe has like 6 rows of 2 seats. It takes off, leaves the station, does its loop, and comes back. For 2 hours you're watching it, and every time it leaves the station and is doing that circuit, 2 kids fly off that roller coaster. Like, is that a ride that you would get on? Like, that would be terrifying. But what a lot of people think that marijuana is not addictive, and the truth is that 1 in 6 kids or 1 in 6 teenagers who are using marijuana will become addicted or have some form of lifelong substance abuse problem in their lives. So it is addictive, and it's a pretty high percentage of people that will have issues with addiction if they've been vaping marijuana at a young age. And again, that's because teenage brains are different than be a different story if as an adult I was vaping marijuana, less likely to have an addictive issue with that. So this helps us make this point that 9 out of 10 adults who have an addiction of some type, whether that's cigarettes, like nicotine addiction, alcoholism, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, 9 out of 10 of those adults who have some type of addiction started using something when they were under age 18. Most heroin users don't start by just putting a needle in their arm. They don't grow up and go, today I'm going to start using heroin. They'll start with something like a red Solo cup in the basement. So that's why we're here today. We want to make sure that teenagers get this message now, like putting drugs of any type really, but we're talking about vaping and nicotine today. When you put drugs into that young developing teenage brain, you're really taking sort of this chance with your future in addiction.
So this is the contract for life, and this is from a anti-smoking commercial, a really famous one. I'm sure you might have seen it. And it says it's for a teenager to read to their cigarette or vape device, and it says, "I, insert your name, have earned the freedom to define who I am." And what this means is, as teenagers, you sort of are growing up in high school, you're being able to pick your classes more, you are getting your license maybe, you're gaining more freedom on the weekends and during your summers. And with this power, I hereby agree to be bound to you. I agree to be bound to this small device that controls my impulses. I hereby bound my money to this tobacco company because I'm addicted, to let you decide how I spend my money, to let you decide how I spend my time, to let you hurt me, to come running the instant you snap your fingers. And with this contract, I relinquish part of my freedom to you. And what this really means is that when you light up, when you choose to vape, when you choose to smoke, you're signing up for this. You're signing up for maybe even a lifetime of this addiction.
Or worse, or other addictions. So no drug is safe for your brain before age 20 to 25. We know that there are already other products like in the wings, like should e-cigarettes be made to disappear tomorrow, we know there are other products that are ready to be sort of pushed out there, especially, towards young people to fill that void. So even if we get rid of the e-cigarette problem and vaping and smoking, know that there's going to be something else that comes along in the next year or two. And so don't always question new trends when they come along. Let somebody else be the guinea pig and try things out.
So if you or someone you know is ready to quit at this time, feel free to visit our 5th webinar, which we'll be discussing some great resources, or there are these 3 resources listed here, or visit communityincrisis.org where you can find them all listed.
We hope that what we've presented today will help you to make more informed decisions about how you want to live your life.
And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to visit communityincrisis.org.
Thanks.